Hi, young ladies and gentlemen. I was asked about a week ago by Father Dennis if I would give a talk for the confirmation witness talk, basically. And I'm so happy to do it. A little bit about myself. We've been in the parish, my wife Claire and I, 52 years. We've been going to St. Catherine's all that time. My original church was St. Gall's at 55th and Kedzie, and we just love St. Catherine's. So Father says, would I, just because I'm the oldest one, I'll be 83 in May, and don't deny it. And he just said, Larry, I'd like you to talk about what directed you in your life. What are some of the stories that would relate to our group of kids from St. Catherine's? So I picked 3 stories that might relate to you. First of all, don't laugh. This is my communion picture. As you can see, it was in 1946, and I was going through the scrapbook, and we had shorts on in those days, and that was me. But the thing that I remember most is that I got a prayer book and a rosary, and this has been a staple all my life, maybe because I started out at a very early age. But I remember Sister Mary Redemptive. She was the first grade teacher, and this was during Lent. And she said, you know, kids, for Lent, let's do something different. Instead of giving up candy, going to the show, doing things you like, how about if you do something that is a little bit more unusual, going to daily Mass. Now for me, I thought about it, and I'm a real competitor. When I'm thrown out a challenge, I do it. She said, wouldn't it be nice if you can go to maybe 2 or 3 days a week? And now I was going to a public school, so I would have to go to St. Gall's at 7:30 in the morning, and then after Mass, walk to Tanti's school, which was a mile away. I did it for 39 of the 40 days. But what it did is, the more I went to church, I would say rosaries on the way to church, on the way to school. So I got into the habit of doing it, and Claire and I still today, we say the rosary every day. Part of my life, something you might want to start. Another interesting story was, in those days, we lived in a bungalow. For those who don't know what a bungalow is, the old houses, they had 2 bedrooms, but they usually had a porch in the back. And during the summertime, since we had a large family, I slept on the porch because we had no air conditioning. I dreamt that I went for a walk in my dream, and I walked down a busy street, 55th near Kedzie. That would be equivalent to 95th and Cicero today. I dreamt, and someone came up to me, shook my hand, and that was the dream, and I never thought of it until the next morning. My mother said, Larry, did you know what happened last night? And I said, no, Ma. She said, the doorbell rang at midnight, and Peter, our neighbor, 18-year-old neighbor, had you by the hand, and you were in your t-shirt and your briefs. You were sleepwalking. Sleepwalking. I didn't even know what it meant. But he happened to come down a street, he never does from a date. He saw me walking down this busy street, and he brought me home. After a while, I thought about it. That was God. He was like God to me. I was very vulnerable. Thinking about that today, walking down the street, and someone took you home. So then I thought, God is always with us, no matter what, in good times and in bad. The other story that I like to talk about briefly is I love baseball. In fact, I'm not only a Cub fan, I'm a Sox fan. I love baseball. Phil Cavaretta married my cousin, and your grandpas may know, he played for the Cubs for 20 years, was the manager and most valuable player. He also played for the White Sox. But my story was this. I couldn't go to St. Rita because they didn't have a baseball team, so I went to a public school, Tilden. I pitched and was pretty good in those days. We took our team to the city championship at Kaminsky Park. I was 17 years old. And I wanted to pitch that game so badly. I had prayed to God, but the coach picked somebody else, Tom, and he was better than me. And we were playing Lane Tech, the top school in Chicago. 5,000 people came out, And that was different than Sherman Park, where I practiced. Anyway, we were going into the fourth inning. We were leading 2-0. And Tom Copen was our pitcher. He was doing a masterful job. But he got hurt the last inning because he slid into home, hurt his leg, but he went out to pitch. Evidently, the injury hurt him because he walked at first 2, there was a pop-up, and he hit a batter. And the coach says, Larry, you're in. I was nervous. Bases loaded. I'm ready to go. I threw that ball, and a base hit knocked in 2 runs, made the score 2-2. And I looked up and I says, God, I have to win this game for the team. God was with me. I struck out the next 2, and we won the game 4-2 at Kaminsky Park. I guess the story is that sometimes God doesn't answer everything we want right away, but he always finds a solution that seems to work out. We pray a lot to God, maybe for a sick member of our family. Maybe somebody has COVID right now, and we want them to get better. It's not always answered, but sometimes God answers 2 months from now, 3 months. Never give up, and always remember that you have a friend. But now I'm going to tell you a story which probably defined my life. We had a summer cottage out in Wakanda, Illinois, about 60 miles from Chicago. And every year, around Christmas time, my dad and I would drive up there and winterize the cottage. In other words, take out the water from the pipe so it doesn't freeze. And my dad didn't like to drive at night, so I always drove up and back. Well, just before we were leaving to go up there, 2 of my friends came over, and they had tickets for the Ice Capades at the Chicago Stadium. And they wanted to know if I would go. And I says, no, I'm going with my dad. And my dad heard the conversation as, Larry, I'll be okay. You go. So I went to the Ice Capades. And again, around 12 o'clock at night, that 2 days later, the doorbell rang and it was a police officer. And he said, I had some bad news. Your dad was killed in an automobile accident on the way home. Now, first of all, the shock is I never had a chance to say goodbye to my dad, but also I felt guilty that I should have been driving that car. And if I was, my dad might have been alive. But over the years, as I grow up, I said, maybe God had a destination for me to do other things. And I think he was right. When we lose a loved one, of course, we pray, and that's why we're good Catholics. Being a Catholic is not easy, especially now in a secular climate that we have. Going to church is being more negative. People say you don't have to go to church. But you know what? You're all good kids out there. You all got good families. You got St. Catherine's. This is the place to be. Our friends are important too. And if we continue to do the little things in life, go to church, pray for others, especially at this time. Another important event, and probably my most important event in my life, was marrying my wife, Claire. We've been married for going to be 56 years. And when you have a mate, it's so important. We don't always agree on everything. She thinks I have too many papers around the house, which I probably do, but there's a balance. But the strong thing is our faith. When I don't feel like going to church, she says, I'm going. Then I go. Sometimes it's the other one, I'm going to church. And she says, okay, I'll go. Even on our vacation, we were in the Grand Canyon years ago, and it was on Assumption Thursday. Here we are, 50 miles from any type of church. But I heard there was a RV where a priest was going to say the Mass. There was 4 of us, my 2 beautiful kids, Patrick and Michael, myself and I, the priest, and an old man. And we celebrated church. And the kids asked me, Dad, that's not a mortal sin if you would have missed. And I said to us, it's important that we go no matter where. God's in all these places. We just have to find them. That's our job. So in life, it takes many turns. In one of the questionnaires, they said, who is your favorite saint? Well, my favorite saint, I have two. One is St. Anthony, because he's the saint I pray for when I lose my keys or I can't find my glasses. That's who I pray for. He's the saint to find stuff. But also Saint Benedict. I wear this man of the cross. I was given to myself a couple of years ago down at Holy Cross Church in Arizona, where we have a summer place. And the man of the cross is just men like me, ordinary men, who have their faith of God and also try to relate to other people so they may see the benefits of just being a good person. As we continued on in our life, Claire and I, we loved this church of St. Catherine's. We were involved, we were the president of the Home Association. Claire did many things in the liturgy. She also is Eucharistic minister, a great lector. I did the odd jobs, called bingo, which Elaine, I should get a medal for that over the years, but I love doing it. Also, counting money, been doing that for 18 years, men's club, just being with people. In life, you got your whole life to live for right now. But now is the time you build your foundation of who you are. And it's important, and I always feel, helping others. The two people that were very instrumental in my life, of course, was my mother. 6th grade education. Didn't always go to the church, but she made that I went to church. And she always said, Larry, when you do good things for others, God gives you 10 times more what you do. So she also is one of my heroes. And the other person would be Claire's father. He was a man that had a construction business. He was always there for daily mass, even when his mother-in-law passed away. He was a man that would help anybody. He was a simple man, but he knew that religion was very important. And if we can spread the word to other people, like my father-in-law did by his actions, this would be a better place. I would just also say for yourself, when you see somebody on the block, especially older, that they need their garbage cans to be brought in, or if there's snow, maybe help. We got the greatest neighbors. They do our snow for that. And also, if you have a classmate that's having difficulty with maybe algebra or another sport, you can be the person, just like that man was, to help me, bring me home when I was sleepwalking. You'll be that person. You'll be the guide in their light that they'll always remember that you helped them. But my father-in-law, rest his peace, used to make crosses. These were special crosses. And when he was suffering from cancer before he died, he told the doctor, I don't want all that treatment. I have a job to do. Before I pass, I want to make another 300 of these. And what he did with these crosses, as you can see, it's very unique. In fact, we have one, a bigger one that we use sometimes over here. This cross, he would give to a dentist, to the waitress, to the barber. There's still one at Payless Hospital in the emergency room that he was there 30 years ago. It's still there. And the interesting thing is, his name was Joseph, my father-in-law, and he was a carpenter. God bless you for the best in life.